What's happening, people? It's the Solar Kid, and this is the Other Side of the Sun podcast. And I got my man, Nicholas Orlando James in the building.
Yo.
Same, bro.
Hey, yo. All good over here. How you doing?
I'm good, brother. Yeah, man, I am blessed. It's good to see you again, even though it's not in person. It's been a while still.
It's been a very, very, very long time.
Yeah, bro. It's almost a year now, you know. It must be like a year.
Almost. I mean, we've been in this madness for over half a year now, and before that, I really kind of dropped off the grid anyway for quite a while. So when I got back from the rest, so
yeah, because you went America in December. No, but you guys came with what's the name, A-Class and Franklin B.
Oh, that's true. Yeah. Forget that happened.
Yeah, we had a session.
Yeah, that was a good one. That was a real good one.
That was a sick session, bro. So for those who don't know, Nicky James is a jazz pianist extraordinaire. Man, like improvising, and also social activist. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess so.
So yeah, you are a social activist, bro. Very involved in indigenous people's rights, especially in terms of Native America, not just indigenous peoples in general. Is that right?
Yep.
Yeah, man. So you want to give us a little bit of background on who you is?
Who I am.
Yeah.
Who I was, who I is, who I'm hoping to be. I grew up in Manchester.
Money.
Yeah. Circulated a lot of places. Most of my growing up was in Moss Side and Levenshulme and parts of Burnage.
Well, is that Cheshire? Is that all Cheshire?
I mean, well, yeah, it's all Manchester. What's that like? Yeah, Cheshire County, I guess.
Cheshire.
Yeah. I mean, just grew up there with a lot of my family over in that way. My dad, he's from Brighton, and all his family used to live there in Brighton, but they've gone all over the place now. I've got some family in Wales, got some family in New Zealand. Yeah, but I don't really see them too much. And to be honest, it's rare for me to even go back to Manchester. But yeah, I grew up in Manchester, born and raised in Manchester until I was about 16. I moved to Brighton for a little bit, studied there.
Are you studying Brighton?
Yeah, I studied college in Brighton. Yeah, I went to college in Brighton for 2 years, and then went to university here in London, North London. That's my
Where?
Yeah.
Did you go Westminster?
No, I went to a place called London Studio Centre, which was Dance Conservatoire. That's what they call it, Dance University.
So what did you do a degree in? Oh yeah, because you're a dancer, of course. I forget. Like you don't. Yeah, forget. So you got a degree in contemporary dance.
The BA was called theatre dance. So I trained across all styles pretty much effectively, but I specialized in contemporary for my third year, and most of my training was made up of either hip hop house and contemporary. Yeah, was
son.
My fields.
You hide that well, you know.
You know what it was? It was, I feel like I've got like some serious commitment issues, but when I'm committed to something, I'm very much committed to it. It took me a very long time to kind of figure out what it is I wanted to, not so much what it is I wanted to do, because there's a lot of things that I want to do, but something that I was really passionate about. And dance just wasn't one of those things. And it took me learning how to play and learning to do music to realize that actually I wasn't passionate about dance.
Wow.
Because I thought that dance was my thing, and it was the thing I loved, and primarily actually I guess it was just one of the things I was pretty good at. But really, actually, ultimately, it wasn't the thing that made me want to pursue it. Made me want to pursue something, and create and have happiness in it. Because the dance industry it's a tough industry to be in if you're not
No, it's
If
the
you're
whole
not in it,
theater business. It's the whole theater West End vibes, bro. It's deep, man.
yeah,
Deep
it's
up
just a
in
lot of
it.
trauma, man.
Yeah, lots of fucking, oh my God, sleeping around with the directors and getting your way to the top and this and that,
Yeah,
fucking
yeah, yeah.
backstabbing and it's yeah, it's literally like the movies, man. But that's
Yeah.
interesting, bro. You know, dance is my favorite art form. Yeah, I mean, I'm a muso, I'm an engineer now, but dance is my favorite art form. Like to
Oh
actually,
yeah.
yeah, I love, bro. Like because I feel it's such a creative, like the movement and you know, what I mean, just like all the different styles and yeah, I love
Mm.
dance. Bro. I love watching it, like all from ballet to contemporary. My mom actually did like ballet and contemporary, and my auntie as well. Like you know, what I'm saying they I love dance as an art form.
Yeah, it's really something incredible. I just joined as joined the committee at the university that one of the universities that I work at. I joined as a governor for equity or equality and diversity and inclusion. And you know, when I was writing up this statement for them to be brought on board, you know, one of the things they asked me was, you know, what do you think? What do you think you bring to the board, to the committee? You know, and what does your previous experience, you know, come to bear or come to fruition in that context? And you know, I was saying, well, you know, I believe that dance is one of those few things, like music, that can transcend a cultural barrier or social norms, right? You know, like if music is good, music is good. You know, if dance is inspiring and beautiful, dance is inspiring and beautiful. You know, I know a lot of people, a lot of my friends, you know, who come from the grime industry or just grew up in the same kind of ends that I grew up in. You know, contemporary is like a weird world for them. You know, it's something they're not usually exposed to, and that's got a lot to do with the caveats around viewing an audience members in the contemporary world. It's a very typical demographic, right? It's a very certain demographic, and that really doesn't ever really extend to low income backgrounds.
Yeah.
And but you know, sometimes I'll be bringing people through to watch some stuff, and they're like, "Yo, this is what contemporary." I mean, you know, it's hit and miss. Like some things, just like, "Yo, I don't get this." Like, I don't like it. But
Very like
there are times.
experimental pieces and stuff like that. Yeah, it can be. But then
It can
at
be.
the same time, like you say, like it like for low income communities, like the arts in general is not really something it's something that you can do if you've got like a financial backing or like you know what I mean like it's not like do or die because generally if you come from a low income household it's like you know and your parents are big on uni they're gonna be like yo you better become a doctor a lawyer something that's gonna pay the bills like you don't really have the freedom to just go and express yourself and I mean like I remember working with kids in studio where their parents are paying for them like to have a flat in Hyde Park while they're studying music and then they come to studio working with me kind of thing. And I'm like, wow. Yo, that's nice. Like, seriously, bro, that's nice, man. I mean, obviously, and like that's sick that you're on these committees because you know getting the balance right and helping people to kind of come because I mean, generally, you'll find in those communities the talent is just like immense. Yeah,
Endless amounts of talent. You
yeah,
know, we see that in so many different kinds of genres. You know, look at jazz. Jazz is just like it's really the case on point. You know, it's really kind of like what highlights struggle can ascend into. You know,
yeah,
you know, a lot of these jazz musicians came from, not all of them, but a lot of them came from broken homes or dysfunctional families or you know low income backgrounds, low income households. You know, it's growing up rough, and a lot of that, you know, a lot of that experience, that perspective, really transcended and informed a lot of the music that we listen to. You know,
yeah.
same for blues again.
I remember
Everything.
jazz, like, bro, in South Africa, like, so even South African jazz, like, it's huge, man. You know what I mean? Through the townships and whatever ends, like, that's what you hear. Like, the jazz is big. Like, we used to have a festival every year. I still have it, actually, like, Joy of Jazz every year. And then, I mean, now there's more, like, bigger stuff, like the North Sea Jazz Festival and stuff like that.
Yeah, yeah.
Big, it's big,
Big
man.
one.
Like, it's been a big part of our communities and growing up as well.
Yeah.
I just
Yeah.
wanted to say quickly about the that you were talking about like dance and music and how it like transcends. Do you think that is because of like going back to our roots as like cave people dancing around a fire and banging a drum? So it didn't matter, like before they were like color and I mean whatever we are classified as. That's why it can transcend. Like you say, it's good, or if it's good, it's good. You feel it whether it's black or white or whatever color in between. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think so. I think really the mercurial nature of music is just like sound vibrations, just in general, are something that inherently we all hear unless you're impaired in some kind of way, and you can't. But music doesn't have the same kind of social, even though it is subject to social constructs. At the foundations, at its grassroots, it's not a construct, right? Like race is a construct and ethnicity, or what, if you want to even consider the two the same. But language is a construct, right? There's so many differences in a language based on the people who created them, right? Whereas music, I feel like ultimately what you're utilizing is something that resonates within everyone. And I mean, I guess this is where you start getting into like the certain like divisions or divisiveness of music groups. You start bringing in that whole tribalism element to it, where it's like, oh, I listen to rock and all I listen to is rock, or I love this band and I don't like any other band other than this, or whatever. But really, actually, when it comes down to it, music is just something that existed in all cultures, existed in no matter what land you went to. It was all there.
No, I mean I completely agree, bro. I was speaking to a friend of mine yesterday, and he went to a funeral recently in South Africa, and he was saying, like, he's a musician as well, but he was saying he was just, because it was a tribal kind of African tribe. I don't know if the girl was Sutu or Zulu, but he was saying like the drums that they were playing at the funeral, he was like entranced by these drums, and like you can tell that these rhythms transcend time and space, like, you know what I'm saying? Like there's something about that. And then also he was talking about his other friend who goes, he's like a bit of a weirdo, he's also music, he goes and he plays with these witch doctors and stuff in the townships and shit, and like talking about how the drums how they use the drums to call the spirits and that kind of stuff, bro. So yeah, like you say, it's intrinsic, you know what I'm saying? It's like you feel it, man. Doesn't matter who you are, you feel that shit. There's something deeper, spiritual, and I'm sure in the same in the Native American tradition as well.
Oh yeah, you've got a lot of drums and flutes,
and the calls as well, like the sounds and the calls that they use in spiritual ceremonies and stuff like that.
Yeah, for sure. So I think it's it's really there's a few things that are really a credit to humans, and music is one of them. The other is cooking. Like I think cooking and music is two most genius inventions. Like how can you make some food that's so good that you can have millions and millions and billions of people like that food who come from like the other end of the planet from you. I think that's mind blowing to me. Like I love food so much. I think it is like one of the most exceptional things humans have ever done is develop culinary.
I never thought about that like that, That's so true. And if you think about it, like everyone uses more or less the same ingredients, but everyone's dishes are different no matter where you go in the world. You know what I'm saying? Like veg might be slightly different, but more or less the same for everyone, obviously depending on climates and stuff, but more or less the same things everywhere, but then different dishes.
It's nuts. So cooking and music, I'm just like hats off to the human race, because it's crazy. It's really crazy what we can do when we put our minds into something holistic. There's something that serves, that really just serves a community. Like we cooked because we had to, and at the beginning it was probably just tasted whack as hell.
Can you imagine, bro?
So,
it's been like, slap it on the fire. Jack it on the fire, do your thing. So there must have been like processes of experimenting and stuff that took like time, bro. Think about
even the tradition behind that. Like imagine going out there and foraging for herbs that you weren't even quite aware whether they were dangerous or not.
That's deep. That's deep. Cause like when when I'm out with my kids and there's maybe like blackberries and then there's some other tree with some other berries and then like, how do you know the difference? They're like, well, I know because someone told me. But those other motherfuckers probably had to eat that shit.
They had to process of elimination. And that's literally like, if you picked the wrong one, you were getting eliminated. That's it.
Either that or you're gonna be like, your stomach's gonna be fucked for the next couple of weeks, bro.
You know what I'm saying? So I think, yeah, music and cooking is just like one of those inherent beautiful things that humans have created. So
That's sick, man. But yeah, I wanted to speak to you a bit about so indigenous peoples. I mean, I know that's a big part of you know, what you do. So like, I think you are aware, but like my ancestry is also part of like the indigenous peoples of South Africa, the Bushmen,
Yep.
and, the Khoi and the Sand people. And basically, it's the same story wherever you go in the world. The Aboriginals, the Native Americans in South America, these people have just been marginalized and like forgotten about, even though they were there like long before everyone else. And these people all living like in tune with nature and the spirit and the earth. And like when you go deep and you actually study these people, you're like, yo, you know.
They were onto something.
Yeah, maybe if we had stayed like this, it would have been a bit like, things would have been a bit calmer, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
with the balance in nature, we wouldn't be talking about fucking climate change and stuff. But yeah, what's your I mean like involvement, and tell me a bit about like your role in terms of obviously to do with your background and that as well.
Yeah, so I mean, I do quite a few sporadic things anyway, but mostly like my focus is facilitating and producing Native American arts and culture in the UK. I'm a manager. I'm a UK manager for a company called Indigenous Enterprise, which is a traditional powwow dance company. And then also I do some consultancy stuff with my auntie who works for the United Nations. She works for a committee called Incomindios, which is one of the very few indigenous committees on the UN that specializes in the First Nations of America. And then yeah, you know, I just try to raise awareness, just in particular about, you know, current issues in Turtle Island, as we call it. That's what we call our land.
Turtle Island.
And just Turtle Island.
How do you mean? Yeah. What's that? I never heard that.
Well, the stories. So it really depends on where you come from, but a lot of the some of the Plains tribes, and then some of the tribes that go up north a bit, just the border of Canada. I think what it stems from originally is that the continent of North America, looks like a turtle, right? And in a lot of the creation stories, there is this idea that that America, Turtle Island, was a turtle that moved, and on the back were the people who you know, tilled the land and were the first to set foot. There's a lot of different creation stories, and many of them are. I was speaking to my big bro Ronnie the other day, and he was telling me about the Algonquians, which is the originators of our people, of our tribes, which is mostly like Canada and just south of the border of Canada, saying that back in the day, when they would talk about the creation story, how it was created, it would go away together as a group or a community, maybe by the Great Lakes or something like that, or you know, a spiritual holy place, an ancestral place, and they would spend 3 days there together, talking in a language about how the creation of man came to be. In particular, the Native American or indigenous or the man of the red skin. They would talk about the creation and how that would happen, and that would all take place over 3 days because it was so long. The story was so long, and the language was so detailed. They would sit there and stay together for 3 days talking about how creation began, how the lands began, how the people came to Turtle Island. But yeah, mostly it's, you know, it's a lot to do with the fact that the land looked like a turtle, and this idea of a turtle was always such a grand deity, I guess, you know.
So how do the tribes like vary? Because I mean, like obviously I don't know like a lot about, I mean, I don't know too much, but you get like Cherokee, you get like, I mean, are those all different tribes, and are they like very different from each other, or like?
Yeah, it really depends on where you're going. Like, there's a lot of differences between the West Coast and the East Coast tribes. Um, there's so many tribes. It's like 560 plus
Oh
tribes.
shit, yeah, because I've only heard like Navajo and like, or is that the same? Navajo?
Yeah, Navajo, or Diné, as they call themselves. Ojibwe, Cree, Chippewa Cree,
Whatever.
Massapee, Wampanoag, Pequot, Blackfoot, yeah, Cherokee, as you said, Apache. There's hundreds, and hundreds and hundreds, and then we also forget about our cousins really at in the French Canadian area, where they often get left out of the discussion, a lot out of talks, but they have a lot of problems over that way. They got a lot of tribes and they have a lot of treated land.
What
Nova
about South
Scotia.
America as well, like Middle America and South America?
Yes, America, South America. Yeah, I mean they've got equally just about as many, perhaps even more. I think it's really obviously there's been a massive divide since the colonizers came and settlers came over between Central America, South America, and North America. But really, it's really funny actually, because a lot of the peyote ceremonies and a lot of the traditions that came into the south of North America, where the Navajo people, the Diné people are like the Spokane people and the Shoshone, there's a lot of traditions that were lent from Central America, from Mexico.
Well, like Aztecs, or is that before that?
Even after and before, mostly after, I believe, because for a long time there was a lot of discourse between the Navajo and Mexican. Actually, that's what Navajo means. Navajo means marauder. So Navajo was the name given to the Diné people by Mexicans, or the tribes nearby the border in Mexico. And so there was a lot of discourse and kind of a lot of hostility between the two. Yeah. But when everything really started kicking off with the settlers, there was a lot of passing of culture and stuff like that as a means, as a way to retain what had came beforehand, and that transcended all the way and progressed and developed all the way up through North America into Canada and stuff. But actually, really, peyote ceremonies in Native American church was something that really came about through the kind of the allyship between Central American tribes and south of North America.
So have you been in one of those ceremonies? Have you done the peyote?
Yeah. I did. when I went to the res last, I did two
reservation,
yeah, reservation, yeah. Went and visited some friends, family there, and I did 2 peyote ceremonies, and it's one hell of a thing. It's one hell of a thing.
So peyote is it's a cactus plant, like or something, and then you
like a little cactus. You grind it up into the powder, and then also what remains of the cactus then goes into a tea. And basically during the peyote ceremony, while the ceremony is proceeding, there are points where you take this powder, where you have the powder, and you drink the tea. It's crazy because it's medicine. That's what you call it, medicine in Americas, particularly in the southern states.
Is it illegal?
It's legal for Native Americans to use peyote.
Okay.
It's illegal for anybody who isn't a follower of Native American church or is a Native American to use peyote, because it's still like a Class A drug or whatever it is. And so, it's medicine, and it's and you're not supposed to abuse it, just like any kind of medicine, because if you abuse anything, too much of one thing is bad, right? So, but yeah, it's a mild hallucinogenic, supposedly. I question it. I had this conversation actually quite a lot, because I believe there is this element of genetic predisposition when it comes to drugs. I feel like if you're a person who isn't from an area where they have, you know, certain chemicals or certain medicine or drugs, if you want to call it, and it's not part of traditionally in your heritage, then you're gonna have some side effects. You're gonna have a different. I feel like you're gonna have a different experience, because the one thing I noticed when I took peyote, particularly a lot of my white friends were like, "Yo, you have peyote, it's gonna be crazy, man. You're gonna be seeing spirit animals." And I'm like, "All right, okay." I got there. I was just chilling. Everybody in the whole garden was just chilling. There was a bunch of us, maybe like 8. We all just like, yeah, this what it be. But I feel like if you're, especially someone, if you're susceptible to having hallucinations, or if your mind is geared a certain way, then you're going to see those things. But also, I think it's got to do with genetics. You know, like with a lot of the Asian demographic, you know, they have adverse reactions to alcohol.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
the red
My wife
cheeks.
goes red, bro. When even if she just has a sip of wine, her whole face goes red, bro.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying. So, and you know, same for lactose intolerance. You know, like
Yeah,
for a
like
lot of us, it's the same thing. I feel like it's just like if you're not genetically predisposed to something, you're gonna have either an extreme reaction or something counter opposite to what maybe people who are used to it.
But then I think also maybe like the setting as well, because I mean, like with you, you were in the right place, the right setting. You weren't in a nightclub. You weren't in like, you know, I mean, doing some next things, whatever. So all those kind of energies that are around you will obviously affect it, because I know, like, I'm sure it can. I mean, I've had times where I've taken, I mean, I've done mushrooms and stuff. Like, I'm probably not the same, but like, you know, it depends with who you're with and stuff. You know what I mean? Otherwise, it can be like, yeah. And like I said, if you're doing it in a spiritual manner and like under the right guidance, then, you know, it makes more sense. You know what I mean? Like, to me, anyway. Because I think so many people abuse those things, like ayahuasca, San Pedro, peyote. It's just like a fad kind of thing. You know what I mean? Like, yeah.
I think for 100%, I believe that, bro. I see that a lot. You know, and there's something to be said about about rituals and about ceremonies. You know, there's like a routineness to it that centers you. You know, it brings you into, it keeps you in the space.
Yeah.
You know, in that peyote ceremony, there was a lot of praying going on. We all pray for the person that we're praying for, who's there with us, and we do that. That's over 13 hours. So we start at 8:30, and then at 9 o'clock, well, I'd say maybe 10 in the morning, when the sun comes up, that's when the ceremony starts drawing to an end. But from then, from start till finish, we're praying. You know, there's the singing procession, you know, where people will sing different songs from their families or from their tribes, or straight peyote songs. And, you know, and the drumming, there's this drumming from the water drum, which is a sacred drum. And, you know, that's always going. You hear that. Yeah. And I feel like, you know, these things really do kind of like center you, and they keep you in the space. I feel like if you're left to your own devices when you're doing peyote or ayahuasca or any kind of psychedelic or hallucinogenic,
Yeah, plant medicine.
yeah, you know, you're gonna become susceptible to your own mind, which is the worst place to be sometimes. You know what I'm saying?
But is that like the ceremony? Is it like a rite of passage as well? Is that because I know that they have one for the women. I know that girls in their teenagers go through that, or the Native Americans as well.
It depends what tribe you're from. You know, I think with the peyote ceremony, it really depends on your family. It depends on your clan. It depends on your tribe. You know, the Lakotans, they have their spirit festival. I think that's what they call it. And a lot of that up by Yellowstone, the reserve over there. You know, they go up into Yellowstone, where you got all this beautiful landscape. It's just incredible. And they have a rite of passage. They have a, you know, coming into manhood, as you say, where they do a lot of piercing of their bodies and a whole ceremony, and it's incredible. But yeah, I really think it just depends on what tribe you come from. It's really hard for me to say, because I come from a tribe that has lost a lot. We were the first to meet the settlers when they came, and so we were the first to be colonized and oppressed and assimilated. And so, you know, the tribe is very small.
What tribe?
And we lost a lot of tradition. Massipi Wampanoag.
So what,
so
I mean,
Massachusetts.
Are you mixed race though? Like, so like, what is your
Yeah.
Your dad Native American?
No, my dad is British. He's white.
Okay.
White. My grandfather, Native American, Caribbean, and then my grandmother's Cuban. Yeah, so there's a whole history behind, because there was a lot of when the British settlers came over, there was a lot of tribes that sided with them.
Yeah.
Because obviously it was being attacked from all different sides. The French, the Dutch, the Portuguese, the Spanish. And then also you had the Irish and the Scottish settlers that were brought over with England, who were displeased with the empire anyway. And so, there was a lot of warring going on, and the Iroquoian Federation, which was what, and the Pequot Nation, which was what the federation and the alliance that our tribe was in, were at war with the Cherokee. And so the Cherokee enslaved a lot of people. They enslaved a lot of African Americans. They enslaved a lot of other tribes as well. And it wasn't until the British kind of started showing them their ways of slavery that you started to have this trading going on. Before that, it was more like a fulfillment of roles. Sometimes some tribes, depending on what tribe you're from, if you were taking a slave from war, you would be expected to fill the position of somebody that had passed away during war. So you would take on their roles as like maybe like a partner or a soldier or whatever. And so the British slavery brought in a whole new element of this trading. The Cherokee Nation could use it as leverage and value and as an economic system. And so a lot of Native Americans ended up in halfway across the world, or in the West Indies and in South America and whatever, working on plantations and stuff.
Native Americans.
Mm.
Jeez, I didn't even know this, man. That's deep. That is deep.
Yeah.
But that's the thing, is like people don't really know. Like you need to do your research, man, and like check out different, because people just see things as the way is. Like this whole new with the whole Black Lives Matter movement that popped off recently. It's like some people's like, yo, this is not new. Like some of these things, like most things, like anything that's why they say it's good to get to know history, because it helps you to kind of understand that, like, yo, these issues or these struggles or these things that you're going through, even personal things or like psychological things, it's like, yo, man, that shit's been going on for time, like forever, basically. And for me, like, that's why I love history, because like it just reinforces the fact, like, that it's okay, it's okay to question, it's okay to be different, it's okay, because there were probably countless many people before you who fucking did the same shit.
You done the same thing. Yeah, 100%.
There was two things I wanted to speak to you about, but like the one thing I'll start with this one. Cultural appropriation or misappropriation.
Misappropriation, yeah.
Yeah, I know that's a big peeve of yours, man. So,
yeah.
And recently there was this, I think it was appeal or whatever. What was it? Like where you guys were fighting against the Exeter Chiefs.
Yeah, the rugby team, yeah.
The logos and stuff. And I mean, that's something that, I mean, like, you got the Washington Redskins, you've got, is it the Braves as well, like, in American football. So it's quite...
Cleveland Indians.
The Cleveland Indians, yeah, the baseball team, So like this, it's pretty much everywhere. I just wanted to know your opinion on that, because like a lot of people can just be like, oh, well, I mean, come on, it's just a name. It's not like whatever. So what is the, the reasoning behind that?
So I think really the movement has been going on for a long time. I think there's always been some dissatisfaction across the world when it comes to cultural appropriation and mascot usage and all that kind of stupidness, blackface, red face, all of it. It really started to kick off recently because Stephanie Freiberg, who is I believe she's a clinical psychologist. But anyway, she had done a lot of research into the harming effects of cultural appropriation, but in particular mascots and branding for sports teams. And there was overwhelming data from across the nations where they do a lot of data analysis and research that a lot of these mascot and imagery and branding was causing a lot of our young people to commit suicide.
Really?
Yeah, and drug abuse. There was a lot of ties and links into just feeling devalued, because, you know, that's effectively what it is. What you're doing is you're creating a caricature of somebody that's untrue. And, you know, it's just like, I do my toxic masculinity support group on a Wednesday.
I was gonna
And,
get into that as well,
yeah, so, you know, the reoccurring theme is that actually creating an expectation, creating an image and a design for somebody that they can't fulfill can be incredibly harming mentally, right? And if you have to deal with that from day one till whenever, you know, eventually it's going to have a toll on you, you know. And some people just aren't in a space where the aftercare is good enough, or the mental health awareness isn't good enough for them to receive the resources and the support they need in order to get through that, right? And so a lot of people slip through the cracks. You know, they you know, there's a high amount of suicide amongst young Native American men. You know, I would say the same for women, except for predominantly their problem is that there's a lot of rape and missing and murdered Native American women, and just Indigenous women in general. But yeah, so, you know, there's a lot of racism, inherent racism in schools, and there has been for a very, very long time. These kind of things all stem from these unattainable, very unrealistic, romanticized, exoticized stereotypes surrounding Indigenous people, Native Americans in particular, and it's homogenizing. It's very disrespectful. And I think after a while, it just takes, you know, it has a real effect. And people don't take you seriously when they think you're just some kind of mystic icon, you know. They don't understand that you go through this, you get dehumanized.
Yeah, because I remember, I think, because I mean, like, Native American imagery is something that a lot of people, you know, people will dress up as, you know what I mean, with their headdresses, or they'll get tattoos and, like, I mean, you know, shit like that. So do you feel that that is, you know, like, disrespectful as well? Or, like, if it's done in a certain way, it might be more respectful? Or is it just you don't do that kind of shit?
I mean, I think it just really is about permission, really. You know, like I always say that, you know, if you were somebody that was, especially in the West, if you were someone that was making a phone, right, and you used the Apple icon, but you weren't part of Apple and you weren't a representative or a manufacturer of Apple, you're looking at a copyright lawsuit, right? You're looking at, you've willfully or potentially ignorantly taken somebody else's imagery and branding, and you've used it without permission, without consent. Now that's an issue, like, you know, with copyright being as it is in this country and in the West. The same thing, I think, applies for cultural icons. If you're not asking for permission, I know it's difficult to do, but actually the research can be done, right? If you're really invested in something, you can do the research. If you're not asking for consent and you're not asking for permission, you're just taking something that doesn't belong to you.
Okay. So if they've done it more like in a more thought, no, that makes more sense to me now, actually. And I suppose if it was done in a more thoughtful manner, because I suppose something like the Exeter Chiefs, you know, the people who probably started that club had no fucking any sort of thought about, they were just like, oh yeah, Chiefs, Red Indians, whatever, yeah, that sounds like a cool name, let's do it. But when you put it that way, like, yeah, it makes a hell of a lot of sense, especially when their ancestors were the ones who fucking, you know, the ones who brought the turkeys and shit, and like gave them that, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, exactly. And I think that applies across all cultures as well. You know, like, if you know how once upon a time, yeah, people could dress up in a fake dashiki, yeah, running around with spear, with like a wooden stick, like it was a spear. You know what I'm saying? But you can't do them things no more. Like, we know that's some racist shit.
I was gonna ask you about that as well, but do you feel it goes the same with like music? So like, do you think there's such a thing as like misappropriation? Because I mean, that's a big thing, like within hip hop or in rap and stuff like that. So like Eminem, would he be like, but then he grew up in Detroit as well, you know, so, with black people and shit. So I don't know, like, you know, what do you feel about that?
Permission and consent, you know what I'm saying? If you're growing up in an environment where you're surrounded by the people whose music you're imitating or using, and they're in your circle, then effectively you've been given permission by that person. You know what I'm saying? Like, Eminem works with Dre. That's Dre's culture. That's Dre's, you know, identity. Tradition. That's his. Yeah, that's his to give freely. If he wants to give, it's a gift. And I think that's what the difference is, you know, like historically speaking, you talk about headdresses. If somebody outside of a tribe had a headdress from someone else, it was a gift. Same for dream catchers. Like somebody gave that to you. That's their culture to give to you as a gift. I feel like in music it's the same thing. If you're, you know, look at Afro beats for a hot minute, or like Kuduro or something like that, you know, it's like, yeah, if you've got a master, let's say if you got a master Saba player, if you got a griot who taught you the ways and gifted you the teachings and the, you know, the technique, right? And that person says to you, go forth and use my music and use what I've taught you. There's your permission. You know, there's somebody who's gifted you something that for you to use. But if you're just willingly taking things and not even, I mean, the worst of all the crimes is not even, you know, learning about acknowledging, learning about the history or whatever.
I suppose that's the key point, you know, because like that is the key point, is like if you pay attention to the culture and tradition and it becomes a part of your being and your psyche, because like for me, I'm influenced by so many different cultures and religions and histories and stuff. And I actually go and I like look it up, or I learn about it, the music and the culture and the heritage. So when I make music, like a lot of different influences come out at certain times if I feel certain things. So like, I suppose that is the key, is like, if you're going to do something, make sure you understand, like you said, like, do people even know what the griot is? Do they understand what the culture of West Africa was and who the griots were? And like, you know what I'm saying? That the tradition of being a part of the griot family, how they move the music across West Africa, and you know what I'm saying? Like that makes perfect sense to me, man. You know?
Yeah.
And then using that in your music and that kind of thing as well.
I mean, I'm not even a Saba player. I'm not a percussion player really in any right, but you know, I know about griots. I know about the history that came with it, about, you know, drum calls and you know, having your drum having a name that you can play. Like, I know this stuff because out of respect for the people that I was in a circle with, in the context with, I wanted to know about them. I wanted to know about their history. I want to know about what makes them who they are. When you start ignoring those kind of things there, I think then you're getting into a space of, you know, this weird abstract word of disrespect. But for me, that's disrespect, you know, because it's just laziness, you know. And this day and age where you can just click and type, there's no reason.
Yeah, you can literally just go down a YouTube wormhole if you want to, and like you can be up on shit like next day, you know what going like.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah, so my bro Prophecy always says, he's like, yo, it's 2020. Y'all can't be a racist no more. That's a choice.
Yeah.
Like, ignorance doesn't exist. Like, if you see something or you're saying something or you're feeling something, you need to be doing your research, yo. Because you can.
Man. Yeah, you can literally, I mean, like, yeah, you can now just one click of a button and then you can find it. Everyone has internet pretty much everywhere, unless you're like living in a bush or something, you know what I mean?
I spoke to Siri the other day. I was like, yo, Siri, is wearing a headdress cultural appropriation? Siri pulls up like all these research articles and everything. Like, your phone will tell you shit. Like, literally, your phone will tell you shit. You have a little person in your hand that's like, yo, I've got the answers to you. So there's no excuse for ignorance anymore. Naivety maybe, but ignorance, that's a choice.
Nah, true, man. So another thing I was gonna get into was your group that you started, man, which I feel is something that's so important, like especially for young males and people in general, really, and that's the toxic masculinity, which for me, I completely understand. I grew up in the 90s and 80s and shit, like, so, you know what I'm saying? Men never used to really, you know, my father, grandfather, they never used to show you know, what they're thinking, feeling, you know, just beat you if they feel like it, you know, homophobia, this and that, chatting shit about women, whatever. Not everyone, you know what I mean? Like, my father he was a very respectful person and whatever stuff, but just generally around, you know what I mean? You find it with a man there and shit like that. So what made you start the group, and how's it been going? Like,
yeah, I think it's a long, you know, it's a very long story, but I mean, ultimately, what made me create the group was I was in a complicated situation with somebody, a female friend of mine who, you know, I developed really strong feelings for, and she ultimately, after a lot of complicated scenarios where I had a girlfriend and then she had a boyfriend, and the timing just not being right, and then the timing became super right all of a sudden during lockdown, and the intensity of the emotions of the situation, you know, due credit to this person, they had made it clear to me when we got involved with each other that they weren't looking for a relationship, and I could just never quite I could just never quite come to terms with it. I could just, you know, there was a part of me, it was just like, why does this person not want me? Like, why can't I, you know, like, why can't I have this person? And that was the problem for me. That was the problem, because it got to a point where it was just, everything was just emotional. Like, not that there's anything wrong with things being emotional, but it wasn't a helpful kind of emotional. It was just destructive. And I feel like a lot of it was coming from me being confused with the situation, but also me effectively not getting what I want. And I had to deep myself and be like, yo, why is it that this person doesn't want me? Why is it this person doesn't want me? I don't understand. Why does this person want me? Why can't I have this person? You know, this element of like possessiveness.
Possession is the
Yeah.
yeah.
And, you know, I was like, this isn't okay. Like, this person should be able to say to me, I don't want to be with you, and I should be okay with that. Like, why is that? Why have I taken that upon myself to be so offended and so harmed by it, even though this person has shown me love and support? And ultimately, yeah, I was like, I need to get out of this space where I feel like I have ownership of someone. You can't own someone. Like, a person is not an object. You can't objectify people. And so I said to myself, right, I'm going to go celibate. No intimacy with myself, no intimacy with anybody else. So I've been that way now for 9 weeks. And I was like, okay, if I'm going to do this so that I can kind of get better control over my habitual nature of sexualizing and objectifying women in particular, I need some help. I need support. And so I was like, okay, maybe I need to create a support group to help me through that, and also journal my experiences, and so that I can share them with this group and talk about this thing that is appearing to me as a form of toxic masculinity, and what other people think of that. Like, what is it that toxic masculinity means to other people? Like, you know, what is their perspective on it? What's their understanding of it? And can we come into a space where we can remedy these things that potentially we don't like, or we feel like are harmful to situations or people? And so, yeah, I created the group to kind of like,
So what kind of stuff,
support that.
what kind of stuff have you been talking about? And like, I'm sure it's been massively helpful, because any type of, like, you know, it's therapy in essence, you know. But
Yeah. There's a lot of things we talk about. I mean, mostly, you know, there is this, as somebody who's quite, you know, very much into the school of rationality, of rational thinking, and absurdism also in the same space, where, you know, this idea that the human knows nothing, and so you really can't ascertain true fact or true knowledge of anything, because, you know, everything is perpetually changing. And so, you know, coming into a space where there's a lot of talk of emotions and potentially some spirituality, a lot of spiritual aspects, you know, often there is conversations about social political elements and philosophy, but also in the same space, there's a lot of room there for emotional sharing, emotional intelligence. And so it's a mixture of two. You know, we talk about a lot of things. We talk about why it is we actually think that men have this level of toxicity that is assigned to men, that is gendered in such a way, you know. And then also we share a lot of experiences from our past. First time we experience what we now perceive as toxic masculinity, abuse, you know, things we've done to other people, how we've inherited it, or how we're, you know, perpetuating it, or how we're perpetrating it. And so it's we talk about a lot of things, but it's always really, really helpful.
is it an open group? Like, you send me the link and I'll put on the description, and for people to kind of see and
Yeah, 100%.
jump.
Yeah.
Awesome. And that's awesome, bro. And I mean, like, yeah, I like it a lot. I mean, something a lot of people have. I mean, I know personally as well. You know, I remember when I first came to England, there were so many things about my upbringing that I had to kind of work through, and I still am working through. You know, in terms of objectifying women. And I mean, I've taken a bit of, not taken a bit of, I've always been on a kind of spiritual path. And like you say, I don't know, sometimes you want to suppress it. Like you said, you went celibate, or you're not, you know, doing that. But then like times when I've tried doing that, it like, when it comes back even harder. And then you have to go through another process of trying to like find your zen again and stuff, and then go through. So it's ongoing, and like to have the conversation is sick, man. So are you like, what are you spiritual? Do you believe in anything? Like, do you follow any particular construct or belief system? Or?
I don't know. It's difficult, you know, because obviously, like with my background being the way that it is, my heritage, you know, I do have a very strong sense of spirituality and culture that surrounds that. But ultimately, obviously, as well, as a person who spends a lot of time in that headspace, you know, there's a lot of deconstructing going on all at the same time. You know, sometimes I catch myself like, you know, thinking about the creator and what the creator has done, and I'm also like, who the fuck is the creator? like, who is this thing? Who is this entity? You know, like, and also, you know, like I said, I'm an absurdist, right? So, you know, I'm also struggling and contending with also the constant idea that everything I know, I don't know.
Yeah, no, I get that.
You know,
I get that.
so
let it go, bro. Let it go, man.
Yeah.
Just let it go.
Yeah. I just don't assign myself to anything now. I'm just like, you know, like put my hands up and just like whatever comes, whatever happens. I will try my best to understand it and find out more about it. But ultimately, I'm comfortable with the idea that nothing is right, nothing is wrong.
Yeah.
And, you know, we're just living the experiences that we're living in the moment, and we try to learn more and try to act in the way that we deem fit as of the moment. You know, and that's the only thing you can do, really.
I learned more about exactly what you're saying, and I have been through my journey into the East. So there's a guru that I follow called Sadhguru, and he literally says the same things about, you know, but then obviously through yoga and practice, and like you said, even like we spoke before, there's certain methods or techniques that can be done in order to find answers to those questions, because you have, everything is there, you know, everything is there. You just need to find a way to do it. And the people who have come before, this in ancient cultures, they've found ways to kind of unlock that, you know what I mean? Like people talk about different things, awakening your kundalini and whatever. To me, it doesn't really matter how you navigate that path, as long as you find the you know, go on a path and find something for you. Don't, I mean, I'm not saying don't, because you can do whatever the fuck you want with your life. But if you are interested, like you say, just go, and like it will lead you down your path.
Yeah.
And you will find something, bro, and you will feel better about who you are, and find some type of understanding, even though no one's ever come back from the dead to tell us what really happens, you know what I mean, once you're gone. So but I still feel it. You feel it, bro. You feel it. And when you do things like peyote or ayahuasca or whatever and stuff, it's like, it's very apparent that these things are there. Even if you don't, like you can sit in meditation or even just meditate, and you can reach those samadhi states, and, you know what I mean, states of consciousness without even taking, you know, plant medicines and stuff like that, man.
I think everybody has their own different meditative practices. You know, I even say that scholars and philosophers are great at that. You know, call it, you know, a state of reflection. You know, where you're perpetually thinking about something, or trying to understand, get a greater perspective or something. And I feel like I had this conversation with someone recently talking about applying value to something, extrinsic value or something. We were just talking about some existentialism and the idea of hard realism and soft realism and material things. And you were saying, you know, like, talking about value, and I said I have a problem with assigning value to things, because the perspective of value is so vastly different based on the individual. And so some people are going to have higher value on things and lower value on other things, and this is why we have such discrimination. You know, in a society that's heavily capitalist, there is greater value on somebody being an individual And that hierarchy of value and individualism is a problem, because, you know, you start valuing people and you're like, well, this person has more value because they're white.
Yeah,
or this person has more
or
value.
the doctor, or he's got more money, or he's got a nice car.
Yeah,
so I'm not
exactly.
going to put a man on road because he's not driving a BM. You know what I'm saying? No, man. No.
Exactly. I said, my way of looking at it, my way of doing things is saying, you know what, value, extrinsic and intrinsic value aside, okay, maybe for me intrinsic value has more substance, but the one thing I know for certain is that everything has purpose, and the purpose is just to exist. That's it.
That's it.
Right. And we see that, you know, now that we understand thermodynamics and quantum theory, we know that atoms don't have any extrinsic value. They just are, you know, and they just operate in the way that they operate in order to, you know, in order for us to conceive of the universe and construct the universe. And
that's what we are.
That's it. That's it. That's all we are.
That's what people say. What's the meaning of life? Live, bro. That's the meaning. Fucking live, man. Enjoy your life. Don't be like, you know. And you have to go through things in life. And I used to do that a lot, like as a youth, like, or like in my teens and early 20s. Like I even used to write poetry. So like I used to have a poem called One Day Depression Syndrome, because like every second week I would go through this existential crisis, and it's like, oh my God, what's the purpose of this? Why am I here? Blah, blah, blah. You know, and it's like, now, I think the older you get, or the more you read and the more you learn, it's just like, fucking live, smile, enjoy yourself. I never used to smile a lot, you know, just because of and I never used to realize that, because I was fine inside, but people always used to be like, not put off by me or whatever, but I never used to smile much, because it was just like so in my fucking head all the time, you know. And that's why I like speaking to you, because I mean, you know, remind me a lot of like, especially like before as well. It's just like about how I used to be in terms of like thinking and overthinking and understanding. You got a house phone?
Yeah, somebody's trying to break into the house. Somebody really.
That's weird.
Really getting on. But yeah, so, you know, just get on with it. And for me, my objective in my lifetime is just to understand more. That's it. Just to gain more knowledge. That's all you do as a human. You just absorb more knowledge, more understanding, and then you just hope to do as much as that as possible to keep you happy until your allotted time is done.
Yep, and you never know when that's gonna be. So like, be happy now, because it could be just in like an hour, or tomorrow you could be gone, bro.
Yeah.
But yo, just before we close up and stuff, man, I wanna talk to you quickly about your music, bro, because you had such an interesting story. Just tell, you know, the viewers and people how you came to play piano, because that was deep. It's just like you went hard.
Yeah. I mean, I guess
fucking thick jazz improvisationalist, bro, and to become a jazz improvisationalist is not easy. You know, people spend their lives trying to master jazz. Some people, but if you have it, you have it. You know, and, I mean, I've been privileged enough to work with you, play with you, record you, and stuff. So I know, like, well done. But tell us, man.
Great pleasure. Yeah, just, you know, I've always loved music. And I come from a musical background, but I was never interested in playing an instrument ever. You know, my mother, she's a singer, was a bass player. My father is a guitarist. Yeah. Yeah, she was a bass player. And, you know, my daddy was a pretty successul guitarist.
No wonder you always play bass when I'm playing bass. I tell you to stay off my bass.
Come on now.
I'm like, yo, this section of the piano, you don't go there. That's me, okay? That's you.
I was literally telling my friend that. I was like, yo, I've got a friend who's a bass player. He hates it when I play piano.
No, I don't hate it, man. I like it when you're playing. But yeah, if I'm playing, like, yo, leave the bass to me, bro.
But yeah, so basically while I was dancing, I think, you know, really what kind of, it really exposed me to my love of live instrumentation was being at the dance conservatoire. You know, a lot of our classes were accompanied by live musicians, and I was like, yo, this is lit as fuck. Like, I'm dancing in a space with a live musician. Like, this is a thing. Like, this is such a privilege. And the more I kind of deeped it, the more I was like, you know what, let me just pick up some piano and start playing it. And that was it.
Once you start,
but that was the rabbit hole. Like the rabbit hole was this small, but it was like this long. It was like
once you go in, it's like, yo.
Yeah, it was like some TARDIS. But basically, I committed to it, and I was like, okay, I want to learn more. You know, I want to learn to play like my favorite musicians. You know, I want to learn to play like McCoy Tyner. I want to learn to play like Oscar Peterson. I want to learn to play like Joe Hisashi. You know, I'm a big fan of Final Fantasy as well. So the musical scores.
Yeah, that's man. That's
serious.
That's not like, yo, let's have a YouTube tutorial kind of music. That's like,
no.
Practice.
That's levels. There's levels to that.
Practice like days, years, and like fucking.
Yeah, so that's what I did for 2 years straight. When I was so this is what 6 years ago almost now. 2 years, 5.5. 2 years straight. I had books. I had my theory books. I had my pianos in the studio space, and I just banged out 7 hours a day, pretty much every single day for 2 years.
There you go, kid. 7 hours a day, motherfuckers. Not some YouTube half an hour. Hey, you can learn to play piano in 5 hours. No.
Man. I was playing till late at night, sometimes early in the morning, and then when I'd get off at uni, I would just stay back and I would play for like 3-4 hours on end. You know, I was just smashing it. I was hitting those books. I was studying all of the greats, the people that inspired me, watching how they played, literally watching their hands move and listening to everything. Ahmed Jamal, Oscar Peterson, McCoy Tyner, Bill Evans, you know, even then likes of John Coltrane, Art Tatum, all of them. I just studied the shit out of them. And then, one day apparently I got good. And that was the end of the story.
Yeah, man. Because like in jazz terms or like in musical terms, you're still young, bro. It's still like 7-8 years in. I mean, I know some sick cats. Did you ever meet Husky in P88? Sick pianist, bro. He's like 18 years deep, bro, and he is. I'll send you his links, bro. He is actually. I need to get him on the podcast. He is a fucking D, bro. He used to come studio sometimes as well, like with Mass and that. Like, bro, this guy, and he's a rapper as well. But like on keys, this guy is Joe.
I didn't really get to meet a lot of other pianists in the studio, in your studio space. Actually, now that I think about it, you know, it would just be me and you, or me and you and someone else, or it was never really like keys players. So.
Yeah, true, man. But soon, you never know. The abstract sun may rise again.
Oh, for 100%, man. The Phoenix, rising from the ashes. Although I wouldn't even say the ashes. I think you just took some downtime, innit?
Yeah,
that was it.
But bro, man, thank you so much for coming on today. Is there anything like you want to end with, or anything you want to say or leave us with?
No, I guess, I mean, it's always good to. I'll probably send you a load of information that you need anyway for people that really want to find out more about Indigenous support and resources and just what's going on in the world. You know, Illuminatives is a good one. Red House series is a good one. There's quite a few more actually, but the Exeter Chiefs thing is worth taking a look at, because they just actually released some new kits, and they've still kept the branding.
I saw that. I read the article the other day as well. I was like, yeah, that's deep.
Yeah, so any support would be great, but yeah. So, but I'll send you some stuff. You need some stuff, so
yeah, similarly, I'll put it all in the description. I'm not sure when this episode when this episode comes out. But yeah, thanks again, bro. Nicholas Orlando James, my G, my brother.
It's always a pleasure, bro. Always a pleasure.
Yeah, man.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate you.
Bro, I will definitely, hopefully we can get you on again, maybe at some point. We'll see how it goes in like time, and then see what's happening with after this lockdown business and whatever and stuff. Yeah. But sure. Thank you, bro. People, this has been the Other Side of the Sun podcast with me, the Solar Kid, and that's Nicky James. We out. Peace.